the currently running thread. So preemption is nothing but temporarily interrupting a task which is being carried out by a system or computer system or operating system without requiring its cooperation and running task at later time. So you are running some process or some program is in execution. You are just going to temporarily interrupt that particular task whichever is being carried out, and later in some later stage you may return or you may resume back that task whatever you have halted or it is interrupted in the previous thing. So that is nothing but your preemption. So thread preemption ability is dependent on the operating system. So it is performed for sharing the CPU time along all the threads. So that means when a process is in execution and you have divided into threads, you have allocated or you have created some 2 or 3 threads. So one thread which is in execution holds the CPU for a long duration, and other 2 threads will not be getting that CPU from a long time. So that should not happen. So you're going to share the CPU time among all the threads. So for that reason, you halt the first thread operation and you give the CPU time or utilization for the second and third thread. So the execution switching among these threads are known as thread context switching. So you're going to halt the execution of first thread and you allocate the CPU for the second time and you allocate some time duration for that. So once the time completes, you're going to give the CPU for the third one. So again, some time will be allocated for that. Once the time completes, again, it will come back to the thread one. So like that. So only one thread should not hold the CPU for long duration. So it has to switch to other threads also. So that is for that reason the execution this preemption is going to be utilized or used, and the switching among the threads are known as context switching. So you need to remember all these words. So when it comes to the types of the threads, you have user level threads and kernel level threads. So user level threads do not have kernel or operating system support, and they exist solely in the running process. So even if a process contains multiple user level threads, the OS treats it as a single thread and will not switch the execution among the different threads of it. So that is the kind of user level threads you are going to have. When it comes to the kernel or system level thread, so kernel level threads are individual units of execution which the operating system treats as separate threads. So here in the kernel level threads, so each thread is going to be treated as individual, as a separate thread. So the OS interrupts the execution to another kernel thread based on the scheduling policies implemented by the OS. So whatever the scheduling policies you are going to use, so based on that, it may switch the thread, like execution of thread from one to the other. So you may have you have 2 ways of binding threads. So like from many to one, one to one, or many to many models. These are like here, like many to one means many user level threads are mapped to a single kernel thread. So you can create many user level threads and they are mapped to a single kernel thread. So one to one means each user level thread is bonded to a kernel or system level thread. So one user level thread and one kernel level thread. So many to many means many user level threads are allowed to be mapped to many kernel level threads. So here you can have the difference between thread and process. So you may get this particular question, differentiate between thread and process. So thread is a single unit of execution and is part of the process. So always thread is a part of one's particular process and it is a single unit of execution. It performs only a single operation or single functionality. So it's a lightweight, always it will be a lightweight process. So it will not perform a huge task or complex task. So thread is a single unit of execution and it is a part of process. But when it comes to the process, it's a program in execution and it contains one or more number of threads. And a thread does not have its own data memory. It shares the data memory and heap memory with other threads of the same process. So in the beginning only we discussed thread, when it is created, a process creates a thread, 2 or 3 threads. So all threads will share the same data memory which the process is given or allocated. So with other threads of the same process. But when it comes to the process, it has its own code memory, data memory, and stack memory. So a thread cannot live independently. So a thread cannot live independently. It lives within the process. Always a thread is going to be associated with the process. It is not an independent entity. So always it will be associated with the process. The process contains at least one thread. So threads are very inexpensive to create. So because it's a lightweight process and easy to create, and it executes one single operation or task, whatever is allocated for it, it's an inexpensive thing to create. But processes are very expensive to create. It involves many operating system overhead, because a process means it is a complex task. So many operating system utilization or use resources controls need to be used. It's a overhead. Then context switching is inexpensive and fast. So context switching, that means from one thread execution to the other thread execution, it may jump or it may go very easily and in a fast manner. So that becomes easy. Context switching becomes easy in thread execution. But context switching is complex and involves a lot of operating system overhead, and is comparatively slower when it comes to the process execution. So that is the reason each process is going to be creating different number of threads. So when it creates threads, the execution becomes faster. So this is the difference between thread and process. You can have the differentiation between the thread and the process. So we'll be using these two terms many times when we discuss operating system concepts and all the execution of programs like that. So multiprocessing and multitasking. So in the operating system context, these two words are very important: multiprocessing and multitasking. So it looks like little confusing and it is like similar, or it is same kind of thing. So what exactly multiprocessing is? Multiprocessing describes the ability to execute multiple processes simultaneously. So you're going to have multiple processes which is going to be executed simultaneously. So that is nothing but multiprocessing. So systems which are capable of performing multiprocessing are known as multiprocessor systems. So you will be having multiple processors available in a system, and you will be able to execute multiple processes in that processors simultaneously. So that kind of systems are called as multiprocessor systems. So that is nothing but multiprocessing. When it comes to the multitasking, the ability of the operating system to hold multiple processes in memory. So ability of an operating system to hold multiple processes in memory and switch the processor, that is nothing but CPU, from executing one process to another process is known as multitasking. So whenever you are switching the execution from one process to the other process, and you're going to hold all these multiple processes are available in the memory, and the operating system is going to manage all these things, the switching of the execution of one processor to the another processor. All these things are nothing but multitasking. So multitasking involves the switching of CPU from executing one task to another. So switching of CPU from executing one task to another is called as multitasking. So this is two different terms and definitions you need to remember. So multiprocessing and multitasking. So the act of switching CPU among the process or changing the current execution context is known as context switching. So again, definition for context switching. So act of switching CPU among the process or changing the current execution context is known as context switching. So for the currently running process at the time of CPU switching is known as context saving. So context saving. So whatever the currently running process, you have a currently running process and you are switching that CPU from that process to the other process. So you need to save the status of that currently running process. You should not leave as it is. You have to have the like at that particular place you need to save. So till which position that process is being executed. It should not begin with from the beginning. So the current status of that previous process need to be saved. That is known as context saving. And then the process of retrieving the saved context details for a process which is going to be executed due to the CPU switching is known as context retrieval. So that means one process was running, you stopped that process and your CPU switched to execute another process, second process. So you saved the status of the first process and you started executing the second process. After some time, you want to come back to the first process. So you need to retrieve, context retrieval. You have to go back to that particular process, previous process, wherever you have stopped. From that part, you need to start beginning the execution. So that process is called as context retrieval. So when it comes for the types of multitasking, so there are three types: cooperative multitasking, then preemptive multitasking, then non-preemptive multitasking. So cooperative multitasking means it's the primitive form of multitasking wherein a task or process gets a chance to execute only when the executing task or process voluntarily relinquishes the CPU. So that means when one process is in execution, another process wants to execute and it wants the CPU. So that particular task gets a chance to execute only when the executing task, that the previous task, whichever is executing, voluntarily stops executing and relieves the CPU. So that time only the CPU will be given or allocated to the next process. So that is called as cooperative multitasking. So in preemptive multitasking, every task or process gets a chance to execute. That means you are going to specify the times for each process. So till that time that process gets executed, then it will get halted. So again, next time will be given to the next task, time will be allocated for the next task, and it gets its own chance for execution, like that. So in preemptive multitasking, every task or process, it is going to get a chance to execute. So non-preemptive multitasking, the process or task which is currently given the CPU time is allowed to execute until it terminates or enters the blocked or wait state. So in the non-preemptive multitasking, when a process is in execution, so the currently it is going to give the CPU time, which is going to be allowed to execute until it terminates that particular process or it enters the terminates or enters the blocked or wait state. So that is called as non-preemptive multitasking. So the cooperative and non-preemptive multitasking differs in their behavior when they are in blocked or wait state. So preemptive multitasking is the better one. So you will be getting or allocating time slot for all the processes. So the next topic is task communication. So you need to communicate whenever your any task or process is running. So there should be some communication should happen between each process. So based on the degree of interaction or the processes running on an OS are classified as cooperating processes. That means one process requires the inputs from other processes to complete its execution. So that is nothing but cooperating process. Then competing process, the processes do not share anything among themselves, but they share the system resources. They compete for resources. So that kind of processes are also available. So cooperating processes exchanges information and communicate through the following methods. So what are the methods it is going to be used for sharing the information or communicating between the processes? Cooperation through sharing. That means exchange through some shared resources. Then cooperation through communication. No data is shared, but they communicate for synchronization. So the different methods of communicating, task communication. So cooperating processes, one process requires the inputs from other processes to complete its execution. But competing processes, they do not share anything among themselves, but they share the actual system resources. They are going to compete for resources which are available. When it comes for the cooperating process, it may use two methods for sharing or exchanging the information. One is through sharing, the other one is through communication. So the cooperating process exchange data through some shared resources. Otherwise, no data is shared, but they communicate for synchronization. So that kind of things they may use for task communication. So when you use the shared memory, so processes share some area of the memory to communicate among them. Information to be communicated by the process is written to the shared memory area. So you're going to be available with this shared memory area. So this is your process 1, this is your process 2. So whatever the information this process 1 and process 2 wants to share with each other, so that kind of information will be stored in this shared memory area. So this memory area can be accessed by process 1 as well as process 2. So other processes which require this information can read the same from the shared memory area. So it is same as the real world example where you have the notice board and it is used by corporate to publish the public information among the employees. So you have a notice board. In that notice board, everything will be displayed and it is accessible by all. So that is nothing but a kind of shared memory kind of thing. So where all the processes, whatever the information is required from that particular shared memory area, can read the same information from that memory area. That is shared memory. So for that, different mechanisms are adopted by different kernels for implementing shared memory. So to use this shared memory, so kernels are going to implement this shared memory in a different methods or different mechanisms. So one method is called as pipes. So pipe is a section of the shared memory which is used by the processors for communicating purpose. So it pipe follows the client server architecture. So client server architecture means you will be having a client and a server, a request and response kind of thing will happen in client server architecture. So this is one of the mechanism which is going to be used for sharing or communicating purpose. From one process to the other process, you want to communicate using the shared memory. So this method is going to be used. This pipe method is going to follow client server architecture. So wherein a process which creates a pipe is known as pipe server. So whichever the process creates a pipe is known as pipe server, and the process which connects to a pipe is known as pipe client. So there are two processes. One process creates a pipe. So if that process creates a pipe, it is going to be considered as pipe server. And another process connects to that pipe, which is known as pipe client. A pipe can be considered as a conduit. That means the medium for information flow and has two conceptual ends. So there are two different types of pipes can be created. One is unidirectional pipe in the single direction, which allows the process connecting at one end of the pipe to write to the pipe and the process connected to the at the other end of the pipe to read the data. So there will be two ends. So the process connecting to that pipe at one end of the pipe to write the data to the pipe, and the process connected at the other end of the pipe to read the data, only one direction. So again, you have bidirectional pipe which allows both reading and writing at one end. So you can see the diagram here. Process 1 connected at this end, so which can write something and communicate to the other one. So this is process 2, which can read whatever it is being communicated by process 1. So this is unidirectional. So process 1, it can write something. Process 2, it can just read. So whatever it is, this process 1 wants to share with process 2. So two types of pipes are supported by Windows operating system. So one is anonymous pipe and the other one is named pipe. So anonymous pipes are nothing but unnamed unidirectional pipes, this one. So unnamed unidirectional pipes for data transfer between two processes. So you are going to transfer data between two processes. So it is unnamed unidirectional pipes for data transfer between two processes. So when it comes for named pipes, it's a named unidirectional or bidirectional pipe for data exchange between processes. So it is a named one, unidirectional or bidirectional, any one pipe for data exchange between processes. So like anonymous pipes, the process which creates the named pipe is known as pipe server. A process which connects to the named pipe is known as pipe client. So process which creates is pipe server. A process which connects is called as pipe client. So named pipes can be used for communicating between processes running on the same machine or between the processes running on different machines connected to a network. So both are possible. So in the same machine, whenever two processes wants to communicate with each other, so named pipes can be used, or it can also be used for running on different machines connected in a network. So both can be possible.